Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. We're going to be getting started in just a few seconds. We're just going to give folks some time to trickle in, and then we will get things started. All right, I'll give us maybe 10 more seconds. I see folks coming in, and I can get us going very soon. Thank you again for joining. All right, I'm going to get things started here. Okay. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. My name is Brinton. I am with Team Handshake, and I'm really, really excited to welcome everybody here today. Just a couple quick notes before we get started with our panel. We're going to have about 45 minutes of discussion about career paths in the gaming industry with our friends from Activision Blizzard King, and then we'll save about 10 minutes at the end for questions from you, the audience. So please pop your questions into the Q&A box throughout the session, and we will do our best to answer some of them before we end today. Just a quick note, you'll only see your own submitted questions or questions that we marked that have been answered. So don't feel like we're ignoring you. We're going to get a lot of questions. We will try to get as many answered as we can before we wrap. And with that, I'm absolutely thrilled to turn it over to our moderator today, Arin.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here today. I hope you are just as excited as I am for this panel. We have some fantastic, talented, amazing people that I am super proud to work with on a day-to-day basis here. And I cannot put into words how ecstatic I am to hear from them. So let's go ahead and do some introductions. Let's start with our names, titles, and then just kind of like an explain like I'm five description of what it is that you guys actually do. I'll go first. Hi, everyone. I'm Arin Goldsmith, and I am a senior talent marketing specialist at Blizzard Entertainment. And what that means is I help out the recruiting team to help show what Blizzard is like as a place to work through social media, events, and other really cool activations. In my free time, I create content on LinkedIn where I write about my career journey and share tips in the gaming industry. So feel free to check that out if that sounds interesting to you. And I will pass it over to Noura.
Thank you, Arin. Hi, everyone. I'm Noura El Bayrouti, she, her pronouns. I am title-wise an associate software engineer, but that's a very big title, broad title. I actually do gameplay AI work. So if I were to explain that super simply, it's anything that moves on its own, looks like it thinks. So usually people characters or maybe vehicles that aren't controlled by a player. I work on that.
Awesome. Let's go to Megan.
Hi, I'm Megan Stewart. I'm an associate character artist on Overwatch 2, which means I work on modeling and texturing skins that are in the game. What we do is we translate the 2D concept art into 3D. So for modeling, it's kind of like sculpting and creating in 3D what the concept art gives, and then texturing is like adding the color and like the texture of the each material for it. Yeah.
Awesome. That is so cool. And finally, Ed.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Tien, one of the early career recruiters here at Activision Blizzard. I'm actually a tech recruiter, which means I usually look for tech folks like software engineers, data scientists, and that kind of stuff to explain my job like a 5-year-old. I'm not as cool as Megan and Noura. Basically, like I talk to people and see if we can work together, essentially. That's essentially what a recruiter is. Vibe check, I guess, more or less. I don't know. So best I can do there.
Awesome. Well, Ed, you are fantastic at doing vibe checks. I can attest to that. But let's get right into it, okay? Let's get into choosing your main quest or kind of deciding what your role is in the world of gaming. We all know there's lots and lots of careers, but let's get into how exactly you pick or even find out which one is right for you. Ed, can you do me a favor and tell me a little bit more about what kind of roles there are in the gaming industry?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if I were to go through like a comprehensive list, we'd be here all day probably. I mean, but with that said, the list of roles that at least we recruit for year over year definitely does change. However, there are a core number of roles that we recruit for every year. On the technical side, we're always looking for game engineers, right? Tools, graphics, gameplay, server, and more. On the general software engineering side, these are roles that you'll find at pretty much like any other company, but for us, they have a gaming twist to them. We have your, general web developers, your application developers, mobile developers, site reliability engineers, and that kind of stuff too. If you go over to like the art and design side, or we call them the creative side, we have your roles like character artist, concept art, technical designer, level designer, narrative design, all that kind of stuff too. And then we also have a number of roles on the I'll call it the corporate side, right? So we have your business focused roles, your marketing, your product management, your production, project management, communications, and so forth as well too. So a number of things all between. But I would say kind of like any role you can think of, we probably have some version of it here at the company, more or less.
Awesome. Yeah, there is something that I wish I knew earlier was that you do not have to make games in order to work at games. If there's a job that exists at any other main tech company like a Google or a Microsoft, it probably also exists in the gaming industry. So there's a lot of open paths for you to explore. And I would love to hear from you, Noura, on how did you choose your career path? Did you go to school? Was what you studied relevant to what you do now? I'm just so curious.
Yeah, so I knew I wanted to get into games relatively early on, definitely before I went to school, because I was just interested in it as an interactive storytelling medium. But what I ended up studying was I had a lot of creative hobbies growing up, so I wanted to focus a lot on the technical side because I was like, I can think analytically and I can solve problems, but I don't know. Like, how do you code? What kind of problems are you solving? So I went to school for just straight computer science. It wasn't really game related, but I was always trying to work on those student projects with friends and just things that I would do outside of class to try and build up that technical side of it. Um, and then, I keep practicing all of the creative hobbies that I had grown up doing. But yeah, I would say what I studied was relevant, but not in the sense of they taught me how to be a game developer. It just gave me a really solid technical foundation for what I wanted to do.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And Megan, I'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, so I feel what I studied was very relevant. I studied animation and games, like film animation and game development. Um, and so since it was kind of broad at the beginning of going to university and stuff, they kind of like let you take a wide range of different types of classes. And so I kind of got to eventually curate what I studied to be more aligned with like 3D modeling, character art, and having that flexibility was really nice. But yeah, so like even though it wasn't specifically like, oh, I went to school for character art, it kind of like ended up being that.
That's amazing. And Ed, did you ever think that you would be a recruiter in the gaming industry? Did you think the gaming industry was something that you were interested in?
I didn't even know I was gonna be a recruiter, honestly. Like I went to school for business, in human resources though, but a business major overall here as well too. And so I kind of fell into recruiting. And so of the group here, I would say I'm probably the poster child for like transferable skills. So for all everyone in the audience here that don't quite know how they fit into the games industry, don't worry, right? There's a number of ways to get in there. Like Arin mentioned, you don't have to be a gamer to work here. For me personally, my experience with the games industry is next to nothing. I was just a player, right? Blizzard games have been part of my childhood growing up and that kind of stuff too. But I was a recruiter at a different company, and so that's how I got in here as a recruiter for Activision Blizzard. So, but outside of that, again, transferable skills is definitely something you should look into, to translate that into a career in gaming.
Amazing point, Ed. I also did not think I was going to end up in the gaming industry. I kind of wrote it off for myself as someone who has always loved games, because I can't code or do art like these amazing ladies who are here. So I kind of was like, there's absolutely no way I'm working into this. In fact, I went to school for costume design. So even if it's not something that you are directly studying right now, there still could be a place in the gaming industry for you. Anyway, I'd love to know what a day in your life looks like in your role. And I'd love to start with Megan.
Yeah, so day to day, it's kind of like progressing on whatever my current task is. So like if I'm working on a skin, just like starting if whatever part of the process I'm currently on. And then whenever I get to a good point on that, I end up getting feedback on my work. And then I also get to like hop in on a bunch of group feedback sessions, which is really cool just to kind of hear everyone's input and like how everyone's like still updating what they're working on. And it's very like collaborative and fluid process.
Amazing. That sounds so much fun. Noura, how about you?
Yeah, on my side, it's a lot of working on whatever my task is, but that doesn't always mean I'm just sitting and coding. A lot of times it also means that I'm going and trying to talk, on the gameplay side, we talk with the designers a lot, the different types of designers to figure out like how do we build our functionalities and systems that in a way that works for what they're trying to do and trying to support them in that way. So it's a lot of collaboration and then a lot of problem solving and bug fixes as happens with coding.
Amazing. And Ed, this is a little different, but I'd love to know kind of what a day in the life of a Blizz turn would look like. What would a Blizz turn kind of expect if they were to join our program?
Yeah, definitely. A Blizzard or just an intern in general, right? They can expect a number of really fun things. I mean, we try to go with a well-rounded approach during the summer here. I mean, you're here for 12 weeks, which will fly by super, super quickly. And in these 12 weeks, right, in addition to your day-to-day job, which is, being an actual, designer or engineer or something of that nature as well, too, we try to, I guess, sprinkle in some different events. We have different social events, networking events. We have different professional learning development events, speaker series, amongst other things here as well too. And so there's always something to really, keep yourself busy with. Shout out to Blizzard. We have a claw machine for just interns here as well too. And so number of prizes to win there as well too. But overall, we try to make things fun overall. And yes, that's one of our Blizzard core Ds.
Awesome. And I'm really curious to hear from both Megan and Noura, is everything is always constantly evolving, whether you're in art or you're in tech or really any discipline. Are there any emerging skills that you think people should really focus on, stay competitive? And we can start with Noura.
Yeah, I would say the biggest skill that will help in almost any job, any situation is adaptability. Like when it comes to technical skills or hard skills, understanding that because things are constantly evolving, the tools are always changing, and being open to that change happening and being like, all right, this is the situation. How do I learn how to use this? Or how can I use this in my work in a way that is, that will help me grow? So that's probably the biggest, it's a soft skill, but yeah, adaptability and like being open to change, probably the biggest thing I would say.
Agreed. How about you, Megan?
So kind of on the same front, I feel that adaptability, there's always like new softwares, stuff like that that are constantly evolving in this field. So learning and kind of growing with the industry is kind of how I like to see it. But not only that, like there's always new techniques and like new ways you can approach things that is really great to just like be able to learn from, and like watching a YouTube video of like how did they do that? Okay, let me try and figure that out as well. So yeah, that adaptability, but also just like training your eye in a way. So kind of just seeing, being like, okay, this is how they did it. How can I approach that as well?
Amazing insight. Thank you so much, both of you. So I don't know about you guys, but I feel like we're pretty good on deciding a path, picking a branch in our skill tree, and moving forward. So let's talk about how we continue growing and leveling up and staying competitive. So I'm so curious, Megan, what skills are you currently focusing on to continue staying competitive and continuing to succeed?
Honestly, I feel like personal skills are like the top tier thing. Like it's a very collaborative place to work. And so being able to like talk to people and kind of just be a person, like you're not just there to like just do A, B, and C. You also want to be able to like interact with them and sort of learn and grow from them as well.
Amazing. Yes, the touching grass as a hobby is very helpful as well in turning to build grow professionally. How about you, Noura?
Yeah, I would say it's, again, I'm gonna give like a cop-out soft skill answer, but staying curious I think has been a really big help, because when I feel curious and I'm interested in what other people are doing, even if it's not necessarily directly related to what I'm doing, um, you'll learn like little tidbits that will surprise you when they become useful. And it's just like, oh, I didn't think this was going to apply in this way. So it's kind of very similar to what Megan was saying, but yeah, just trying to learn as much as possible and staying curious about as much as possible.
Absolutely. And something that we all know is it's very hard to gain experience without having experience, because you need experience to get experience. So Ed, I have a question for you. What do you expect on an application? Someone just coming into the door, and what can people expect to learn on the job?
Absolutely. So they will learn a lot of things on the job. Usually in our roles, I hate to use the term specialized, but most of our teams do specialize in a particular area or function more or less here as well too. And so when I'm looking at resumes for like our intern program, that kind of stuff too, I'm not looking for, a long list and like bona fide, professional experiences and background, that kind of stuff too. Hardly anyone will have that, let's be honest here as well too. If you have that, fantastic, you're on a great path here as well too. We're looking for more so like, I guess, foundational experiences, right? Have you had the experiences and touching upon this software or this concept, have you done things in this space, that kind of stuff too. I would say the number one area where people kind of flounder when they throw in an application is that their resume is not tailored to the job they're applying for. If I'm use engineering as an example because I'm a tech recruiter here as well too. But a lot of people are applying for a game engineering role and they've never put any of their game engineering experiences on there. Maybe they're not proud of it, maybe they're shy or something that's something of that nature. That's not great, because that does yourself a huge disservice, right? Any sort of experiences that you have related to the job you're applying for is valid experiences, right? It doesn't matter if it's professional. If you've never worked at a gaming company before, but you've made your own games, that kind of stuff too, we absolutely love that. The worst thing you can do is to put on a bunch of like non-relevant experiences that may showcase that you have experiences in like XYZ technology or programming language, that kind of stuff too. But it doesn't quite relate to what we're looking for here as well too. It comes down to a numbers game, really, right? We literally get thousands of applications each year. And so the number one question is, how do I stand out? Well, the first step you can do to stand out is to, have relevant experiences. Again, does not have to be professional, right? If you've never interned or worked at a gaming company ever in your life, that is not a disqualifying factor whatsoever. There's many different ways to get experiences elsewhere, and you can do so on your own as well too. So I definitely want to hammer that point home.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Ed. And standing out in the application process is something that's super important. So I kind of want to ask Megan and Noura if you guys had any specific things that you think helped make you stand out, both early in your career as you first started, and also in your application when you first applied. And I'll start with Megan.
Yeah, so I felt in college specifically, I was fairly involved. So like I was in leadership positions in clubs that I was part of, and I also spent a lot of my time like actually trying to work on like the classwork that we had or like the projects we had in class. I tried to actually use those as not just, oh, it's a classwork thing, but actually something that I like could put in my portfolio if I continue working on it. And working with like groups to like do your own sort of games, stuff like that. I think that kind of helped me a lot. And also through all of that, you're also basically kind of networking in a way. Like you're making those connections and getting to know more people while also like growing your skill set. So.
And to Noura?
Yeah, I think this is the point where I get to shill game jams now. I think game jams are a fantastic way to just throw yourself in there, try working on a project. If you don't submit something or if you don't win a prize, it's fine. It's really low stakes. But it's a very, very good way to just get in and start being hands-on and begin to understand, well, what does it actually mean to do XYZ in games, right? Because I think the biggest mental block that I had in college was I thought I knew what game dev was, and then I realized I really didn't. So yeah, getting as much hands-on practical experience as you can, even if it's not like, the greatest game in the world or like super technically impressive. The fact that you did that and you showed the initiative and the interest that like I want to work in games, so I went to see what it's like, I found was one of the more helpful things. And then also similar to what Ed said, making sure that stuff is on your portfolio, on your resume. Um, it I think that definitely helped because a lot of that stuff, my game projects came up when the time came to talk about them.
That's awesome. So it seems like a big theme that I'm sensing here is like initiative, ambition, taking things into your own hands, taking your project seriously. Ed, would you say that's like a fair assessment on like what some key skills you're looking for in an intern are?
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. It comes back to like what I mentioned earlier about having relevant experiences, foundational experiences, right? Foundational experiences really refers more to like just, skills that you should have when you're entering into the field. Again, it doesn't have to be fully developed, for example, I always default back to like engineering, right? Because I'm an engineering recruiter here. But like, do you know C++? And if so, are you really good at C++? Because then if you are, then we can apply it to what we do here and what we develop here in C++ and take you to the next level. I'm gonna try to give you an answer for like design art here as well too, but like your art style, right? Does it match kind of the stylizations that we have here for our games and whatnot? Call of Duty, one of our franchises, is hyper realistic, whereas a shooter like Overwatch, more stylized in nature here as well too. And so if you draw like stick figures like I do, maybe it's not a great match, right? But I don't know, maybe someone else has better answers for me than me on the art and design side. But again, having like something that will catch the attention of not just the recruiters but really the hiring managers and say, oh wow, there's like potential there. There is room to grow there. It can work here. That kind of stuff is what we're looking for.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This has been awesome. So this has been so informative, but now let's get diving in deep. Let's talk about securing the payload. Let's talk about getting tactics for actually scoring that job. So let's think about like interview tips and tricks, okay? How is it that someone can really stand out, Ed, in their interview process? Like beyond what we have on the resume, we've gotten that far. What can someone do in their interview?
Yeah, definitely. So the resume itself is like half the battle, right? And once you get past that first, checkpoint and you get into the interview part of it as well too. I used the term vibe check earlier. I kind of regret it now because it kind of applies something completely different here as well too. I guess to kind of elaborate more so on that, what I mean by vibe check, I really mean more so like passion, right? Do you have the passion for not just the industry, but also a specific role that you're applying for? Again, we're always going to be looking for things of, well, let me phrase it this way. The number one question as a recruiter I always ask is, what do you want to do? I want to kind of hear your answer in terms of, what do you want to do? How do you want to do? How do you want to get to that goal? And more so as well, too, to see if that matches with what the team is looking for. Again, we worked in more of a specialized environment between these different roles here as well, too. And so, if you are someone that's very, very passionate about, graphics engineering and rendering and shading, that kind of stuff too, but you're applying for like a gameplay engineering role, that may draw some questions and whatnot as well too. And so again, having that passion for that specific role and the experiences to back it up would be very ideal to really make it, to the finish line, more or less.
Awesome. So I'm very curious, Megan and Noura, in your interviews with Activision and Blizzard respectively, how did it go? What is something you wish you knew before you went into your interviews, and what do you think helped make you stand out again? And I'll start with Noura on this one.
Yeah, so it was a fairly straightforward process in the sense of like first I was talking to my recruiter, who was trying to figure out like, all right, is this a good fit? Should we potentially get you in front of the team to talk to them? And then after I got through those screening calls, I ended up getting on a call with two members of the team that I work with currently, over at High Moon. And that was it was a mix of like a little bit behavioral, a little bit technical. They did ask me a few technical questions, but I think I also did a coding test like outside of that. So it was kind of much more of a how do you think about these things kind of those are the type of questions that they were asking. What I wish I knew going into that was honestly anything that would have made me less nervous. I think I was pretty well informed from my recruiter as to what it was going to look like, which definitely helped ease a lot of that nervousness. But yeah, I think it was just ask your recruiter, right? If you've got interviews, ask them, is this going to be technical? Is this going to be not technical? And then you can kind of get into the mindset of it. I think that's the biggest thing.
Awesome. And Megan, how about you?
Yeah, mine was, I feel, also fairly straightforward. I had like the stuff with my recruiter, like pretty chill, the vibe check. Uh, Once I got past the vibe check, I had an interview like with my manager and like some senior artists on the team. And that honestly, one thing I was very grateful for is I believe it was my manager. He said to take this as a learning opportunity. So to actually use the interview as like a, okay, even if I don't get this, like I'm gonna learn from it. I'm gonna actually use this for if I don't get this, then the next one I apply to. And I thought that was very helpful and almost calming to know. But yeah, I guess something that is good to always know before you go into any interview, I would say, is that rejection is okay if you don't get it. Like I applied to this the Blizzard internship like years before and didn't get it. Like I wasn't ready for it at that point. And then like this past year I did. So it's like things are okay if it doesn't happen the first time, like to keep trying and keep like growing until you are ready.
Great point there. I also did not get into Blizzard on my first try. It took me 6 applications throughout my career starting when I was in intern age, and I didn't get it until my 6th try. And that was actually the first time I got a screening call. But going on, something that I'm hearing a lot in this conversation is communication, and being able to talk to other people is super important. And a part of that is definitely networking. So I want to know from each of you if networking has played a part in you getting your role or being able to convert from an intern into your current position, or how that has helped you in your careers so far. And we can start with Ed on this one.
Yeah, no, I mean, so networking is definitely important in a number of aspects here to really kind of know people and learn about what they do and what it took for them to get in as well too. Some of the Arin as well too. You know, I applied probably multiple times before I finally got into Blizzard as well too. For me personally, I just worked on my personal skills, right? For me, I really focused more on the transferable skill sets, as opposed to like networking. Probably would have been easier if I networked though, honestly. So I definitely want to +1 to the whole networking aspect as well too, just because it's not just for getting a job, but really to kind of grow more as a professional as well too in your respective fields.
Awesome. How about you, Megan?
Yeah, I honestly also think networking is very important. Like the internship itself, like getting to meet all the same people that I now work with on a day-to-day is honestly a great experience to be able to be like, okay, I fit well, I know everyone, they all know me. Yeah, I wouldn't say that like networking ever like is just like that's the only thing you have to do, but I do think it's one of the things that really can get you the furthest.
And Noura?
Yeah, I'm on the same boat as Ed, as I didn't network as much as I probably should have. Also did not get it on the first try. Are we seeing a trend here? I don't know. No, but I was also much more focused on building up my own skill set, and then eventually I started to network. And I think there's a pretty big misconception about networking of like you're going and talking to people to get something out of them, which, you know, is one way to look at it, but it becomes super transactional, and then it's like it can get awkward really fast. But one of the biggest, most helpful tips that I got is to just go and make friends, right? Like if you're gonna go to events like conventions or anywhere where there's other game developers, just, you know, try to make some friends. And, you know, if you're interested in what they're doing, then the conversation will naturally flow. Um, and those tend to be the connections that I find stick the most often as well, because they're not built off of this like super transactional, like, I want something from you kind of motive. They're built on an actual relationship that you have with that person. And that was a really big like shift that I have to have mentally going into that kind of scenario. I think networking is definitely very helpful in the sense of like you just want to have a good network of friends. Um, yeah, definitely I would recommend it, but I don't think it is the most important thing. It's definitely helpful though.
Great point. Yeah, you have to have your baseline skills in check for networking to really lift up your full potential. Networking helps you after you get those skills in check, those those hard skills there, get seen in front of the right people. So that's how I found a very helpful way to look at networking. So we've covered a lot so far. We've gotten through resumes, interviews, life experience, touching graphs, the whole 9 yards. Um, and let's go to actually succeeding at your role, because I think it's one thing to land an internship and then you get there and it's like, oh my goodness, what I have so much to prove right now. I would love to know what your first advice is for someone on their first day at ABK. And let's start with Ed.
Well, you're gonna get lost for sure, but people are helpful, so definitely ask around and really kind of soak it all in here as well too. Our offices are a mixture of like, you know, your normal corporate gloom and doom, but also with a gaming twist to it as well too. And so for every, you know, plain gray corner, there's always going to be like a really cool statue of like Tracer or Inarius from Diablo 4 or something of that nature as well too. And so soak it all in. You made it. Congratulations. You know, you're part of, you know, not just the games industry, but a company with a long history of gaming.
And Noura.
Yeah. On your first day, don't be afraid to ask questions. I think it's like the most generic thing that I could possibly say, but like the newbie card is probably one of the most powerful tools in your arsenal when you first start. Because no one's expecting you to know things, right? You did the proving yourself part in the interview process where they're like, all right, we like your skill set and we like you for this role. So once you're in and you're, you know, it's day one, you're here to learn, right? Become sponge, right? Absorb all of the information, ask all the questions. Because especially because you're new, people are more likely to give you extra help and help you accelerate that learning process. So questions, important. Make sure to ask them.
All right. And Megan.
Yeah, so first day, I'd say be excited. Like, honestly, like you made it there, like yay. Nervous energy is okay too. I know I was. But just talking to people, like say hi to the people who you're gonna work with. Um, yeah, like take it all in. Look at all the cool statues. That was honestly one of my favorite parts. My first day, I was like, oh my gosh, I love this. Um, and yeah, talking to people and just be excited.
Amazing advice. Yes, you will probably get lost. I remember my it was my first week when I was on Irvine campus, and I literally could not find my office, so I had to take a call in the parking lot, which was a very fun and exciting time. So we're getting past your first day. We're getting into our internship. I would love to know, how can you make the most out of this experience? How can you've been given this golden opportunity. How can you do the most with it? And I'd love to start with Noura on this one.
Yeah, I think remembering that an internship is a two-way thing, right? Like you're not only being evaluated for your performance in this role, although that is something that happens, but you're also, this is an opportunity for you to figure out, like, is this role the thing that I like doing? Is this the right role for me? Asking those questions, talking to a bunch of other people, like Megan was saying, like talking to people and then just figuring out, like, maybe this exact position is not the one that I was looking for, but I know what I can pivot to, or you're like, no, this is actually the role that I really want and I really would love to work full time in this. Think the fact that it's an internship and it is a limited time, it's like you get that trial period, you get that taste of what the job is going to be like. So it's a very good opportunity to make sure you're not forcing yourself into something that you won't love.
Great insight. Let's go to Megan.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything Nora just said. I would also say that you're surrounded by so many people who are doing the exact same role as you and have been doing it for years. Like, take what you can from them, absorb everything you can, ask questions all the time. It's honestly the time to do it. I think it was said earlier, but like you're the newbie, play the newbie card, ask the questions. And honestly, even if it's people that like you're not directly under, if it was another role that you're like, I'm kind of curious what they do, get to know them, ask about it, see if maybe if that is what you want to do, go into there. But like learning as much as you can from the people around you is really, I think, the best way you can do it.
Amazing. And Ed, can you tell me a little bit about like what the best way is to set yourself up to potentially get a return offer? Like what are the best ways that you could set yourself up to potentially get that?
Yeah, no, I mean, so there's a lot of factors that go into play there as well too. But in terms of like what you can control, it's really just being, a part of the environment, a part of the, company, a part of your team really here as well too. Like Megan and Nora mentioned, right? As an intern, play a newbie card, ask questions, learn all that kind of stuff here as well too. But on the other hand, here as well too, don't let that intern title hold you back here as well too, right? You don't need to be a fly on the wall. You're not going to be someone, in the back row just listening and that kind of stuff too. You were hired for a reason, and we would love to hear from you. Speak up, right? I know it's scary, right? To like talk to a bunch of a room full of like professionals with years and years of experience and that kind of stuff too. But again, you're hired for a reason, and whether you know it or not, you may bring a fresh new perspective that they haven't thought about into incorporating a new design or a new experience or something of that nature here as well too. And so don't let that intern title hold you back. Really kind of jump into it, lean into it, participate, be active. And really work with your team here as well too. Feedback comes from all different places, not just your direct team, but also people you worked with as well too. So communicate, work well with others, and really lean into it.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. So we're almost at our Q&A, but before we get into that, we're going to do some myth busting because there's a lot of thoughts that people have about working in the gaming industry. Some of them are true, some of them are not. So I'm going to go to each of you and I'm going to get your insights on some true or false questions. Okay, so Ed, is it true that you have to have a referral to get hired as an intern at ABK?
Absolutely not. False. Nope.
Nope. And that also doesn't apply to regular jobs either. I didn't have a referral to get my position at ABK. Ed, did you have a referral to get your position at ABK?
Nope. They didn't know anybody
Nope.
at all.
Yep.
I should have networked better, but I didn't know anyone at all.
Awesome. And Noura, is it true or false that you have to be an avid gamer to work in gaming?
big old false. That's so not true. Yeah, you definitely, I mean, it can help depending on what your role is, especially if you're, in design and trying to get ideas, or in gameplay engineering and trying to get ideas for systems and stuff, but you don't need it. And you can learn everything you need for the job from wherever, honestly.
Yeah, definitely. I have a lot of people that I work with on a daily basis who do not play video games, who are absolutely incredible at their jobs and are super passionate about the culture and the joy that we get to bring to people, despite them not having that passion for playing games themselves. So it is definitely an option for a career if you are not a huge gamer. So this is for the group. We'll go around. Do you have to have an internship in the industry to get hired full time in gaming? And we'll start with Ed.
Nope. 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 Not at all. Not at all. Like I said, experiences come in many, many different forms and shapes. The main thing is to do something. I know that's so vague and so generic here as well too, but really just dive into it, right? If there's a new area that you want to try it out. Do something with it, right? Have some experience. Don't just have an interest. Actually try it out. Have something that, something tangible to put on your resume and go from there.
Yeah, that is an amazing thing. I certainly did not have an internship in gaming. I didn't even have an internship in marketing when I first got into gaming. The way that I personally got my experience was that I would go on Groupon and I would find hairstylists who needed help with their social media, and I would build out strategy decks for them in exchange, so I could build up my portfolio that way, and I can get my hair dyed when I had no money. So there are different ways to get experience. You just got to get creative with it sometimes. All right. So now let's move into some hot takes, some things that are a little spicy, some things that heat up the griddle, if you would describe it as such. Ed, do you think cover letters are worth it?
Ooh, that's always a tough one. My short answer is yes. My long answer is depends. Like if you're just gonna put in like a cookie cutter, like copy and paste kind of thing there as well too, probably not. But like if you actually have like a cool story or something personal to attach to it, I love reading those. I mean, I can tell you this past recruiting season, out of like thousands of resumes and applications I reviewed, I only came across maybe like 5 or 6 cover letters. And I read them all just because only 5 or 6. And like of those 5 or 6, like 3 of them were like just like copy and paste. One of them had the wrong company name on there as well too, which again don't do that. And then the other few had some really cool personal stories, and that kind of pushed me over the edge to reach out to that person as well too.
Awesome. So cover letter, if good, is good. So make sure your cover letter is good if you are going to include that. With that, Megan, do you get to play games at work when you work at gaming? Is that a normal thing?
Honestly, yes. Playtests happen all the time, and it's really cool to like see everything that's like gonna be coming up, and it's honestly fun. Even me included, people who are not great at the game play in these playtests, and it is still very fun.
That's awesome. Noura, do you participate in playtests?
Oh yeah, I love playtesting stuff. It's I've had to shift my perspective a little bit, because obviously when you're playtesting you are looking for specific things to try to improve the experience, but sometimes there's a bigger playtest where you can just have a bit of a team bonding event and go in with your squads and we do a lot of, because we work on Call of Duty, it's a lot of like pew pew pew. It's very fun, very fun.
Yeah, I personally love participating in playtests too, as someone who is really horrible at video games, trademark, because I get to help add that new perspective that they might not have gotten so far of terrible. Ed, how about you? Do you participate in any internal playtests at all?
I do. I love it when those alphas and betas come out, but I'm really just more of a player than I know what I'm looking for. I'm lost half the time, really, because so I'm just like running around, and if I run into something that breaks the game, then I'll definitely report it to our teams. But outside of that, going back to my question, yes, I love participating in playtests.
Awesome. And what has been the most unexpected thing about working in games for you? And let's start with Megan on this one.
So most unexpected and also favorite, there's so many Blizzard dogs on campus and I absolutely love it. Literally like whenever I need a little like break or something during lunch, whatever, I go on a little path of petting the dogs. Love it. It's my favorite part.
I firmly agree as someone who is also spends my lunch break petting a lot of dogs. Noura, how about you?
Hey, you guys get dogs on your campus? Can you share? For me, it was honestly the like kind of extracurricular things that we have going on. Mainly thinking about the employee networks, to be honest with you. There's just really wholesome spaces with lots of cool stuff going on, and through those, I get to meet and talk to people that I probably never would have otherwise because I just don't get to work with them on a regular basis. And that has been really nice because it's like you get to hear about all these experiences, you get to hang out with people that, you think are really cool that you probably wouldn't have known about. And then the programming that they have is also usually super interesting. That's
Yeah,
that's me personally, but I think it's super interesting.
that's awesome. Can you share a little bit more about what an employee network is and like some ways that this has helped you in your career and which employee network you're a part of?
Yeah. So my main one that I work with a lot is the Women's Network. Employee networks, to give a bit of context, are groups of people that get together and try to get resources to make sure that different groups that might not be represented in other places outside the company, minority groups, things like that, are seen and heard and taken into account. Um, and just kind of creating these safe spaces for people. I work with the Women's Network a lot. I'm actually one of the co-representatives for it at High Moon. And then I'm also I hang out with the Swana Network people. Swana Network is Southwest Asia, North Africa. But then there's a lot of like regional ones and then like racial or ethnic ones and things like that. And it's a really good time, honestly. It's nice to get to talk to other people who might not have the same experience but can still relate to you on a specific level. And it's helped me feel really comfortable and settle into my role here.
Amazing. That is incredible. And Ed, finish this off. What was the most unexpected thing about your job?
Yeah, no, definitely. So I'm gonna preface by saying that this may sound like a rehearsed, like sales pitch type answer here as well too, but I generally do mean it. And my answer here is that I was very shocked and almost scared of like how much of your authentic self you can be here at work. Um, One of our former values was like embracing your inner geek, and that really does showcase a lot here as well too. I mean, I worked in a number of different industries where you had to present yourself a certain way and that kind of stuff too. Not here. I mean, honestly, like I handle a lot of like the programming events for our internship program, and I come up with like these crazy unhinged ideas, and my team's like, all right, do it, instead of like getting pushback, like check with legal first, but do it, more or less. And so I really appreciate having that flexibility and that encouragement to like just be yourself here as well too. And that's how much I've been shocked after working in so many other different industries.
Amazing. Oh, that's so incredible. I would say the biggest thing that surprised me personally, this is similar to Ed's, is how much everyone has been willing to talk to me from like any department, any like level of leadership. Anyone's been willing to share about what they're working on, what they're excited about. Everyone just geeks out about everything they're working on, and everyone's just so excited, which has been so surprising and different than the work that I've done in any other industry. But with that, it is time for the Q&A. Yay! It's Q&A time. All right, let's start with Noura. Something that you brought up earlier is a game jam. Can you tell us a little bit about what that is and how you can find them and join them?
Oh, yes. Okay, game jams are basically, I guess they're a competition, but a lot of people don't really care about the competitive aspect of them. But they're usually over a limited period of time. You either solo or with a group of friends or whoever will get together and you will make a game based off of a theme that they announce at the start of the game jam. So the idea is you don't know what game you're going to make until you get there. They tell you the theme, and then you have to sit and brainstorm, and you try to get that game out in whatever time it is. There's some nice long ones that span over a month or so. I think there might be longer ones. And then there's ones like 0 Hour, which I think quite literally happens in 1 hour. It's a very interesting experience. But yeah, it's a great way to get some hands-on experience with games, especially if you don't know what you're doing. It just kind of gives you a super vague direction to start exploring. And then a lot of times people will take their game jam games and turn them into actual games. I actually have a couple of friends who turned their game jam games into things that are getting published on Steam and things like that. So lots of potential. And you can find them, honestly, you can just Google game jams, and then a lot of them are, fully remote. So you can get into them wherever you are. Some of them have in-person venues, which is nice if you like to see people face to face. I like to use itch.io to find a lot of game jams because they host a lot of them on there, and there's just a huge catalog. Plus, if you already use Itch for your portfolio, some of you might already do that, then it's really easy to just have your game jam game be on your portfolio.
Amazing. Thank you so much. That's super insightful, and something that I've heard almost every developer that I've talked to has spoken super positively about game jams, and that helping them figure out kind of what they're looking for, what they get excited about, and help them land their first roles in the industry. My question for Ed actually is, there's a lot of people asking, do you have to live in California to work in gaming? Is that required?
So this is a multi-layered answer here as well too. I'm gonna try to condense it a little bit here as well too. Do you have to live in California in particular for a career in gaming? No. For here at Activision Blizzard, we have offices all across the country here as well too. And so what I will say is that the requirement of our internship program is that you must relocate to the office that you're gonna be working out of. Now we do provide relocation assistance to all of our interns that are hired into the company, but outside of that, most of our offices are in California, so yes, California is definitely a key place here as well too. But again, we have offices all across the country, different locations, different states, that kind of stuff too.
Amazing. That is so helpful. And I'm going to answer a question that was actually from me. It was, so I mentioned it took me a lot of tries before I got a screening call, and someone wants to know what were some of the ways that I improved to get accepted to Blizzard as an intern. I did not get accepted to Blizzard as an intern. They didn't like me enough for that. So I got accepted to Blizzard later in my career. So there is hope if you do not get accepted as an intern. Just please know that. What the difference was for me in this meantime is this was the first time a recruiter reached out to me. I didn't network with her previously. I didn't talk with her at all, or I didn't know her at all. She just reached out to me through a LinkedIn DM and said, hey, I have this role that looks like it would be good lined up with your experience. So I guess the biggest thing that I did was I gained that experience first. I didn't have necessarily the skills at the time of the internship to prove that I would be a good fit there, but over the years, I was able to build that up to be a desirable candidate for Blizzard. Another thing too, I started posting on LinkedIn. I started posting about some of the projects that I was working on, some of my artwork, some of my extracurriculars that would also show that I was a good culture fit. I wasn't like a huge influencer or anything at that time. I was getting around like 20 likes on my posts, but that still helped show who I was and what I liked and what some of my values were. So I hope that answered your question. So Megan, a question for you is, as for someone who is an aspiring character designer or artist, how would you suggest someone develops their skills or creates a good workflow? What are some systems or programs to use or suggest that they use?
Yeah, so creating a good workflow, I feel, has to do kind of with organization and kind of with time. Like you'll figure it out as you go. I feel, as at least from personal experience, that's how I kind of figured that out. Developing your skills through practice. Lots of times, like I look back recently at some of the stuff I've done a while ago, and I'm like, the growth from then to now, like you don't realize it, but then you look back like from a little bit ago and you're like, wow, I wouldn't have expected that I would have been able to do it, but then, it happens. And for programs, there's a lot of different options. I feel if you get the same outcome with a program, typically it'll be fine, like if you're not using the exact same one. But some standards for at least what I use is like using Maya, ZBrush, Photoshop, Substance Painter, sort of those things. Honestly, being adaptive and learning the new softwares also are really helpful. Like I know some people will use Blender instead of Maya and they get the same results. So software I don't think is as important as the skill set, but being able to learn these softwares and use them will help out a lot.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Question for Ed. Is there a peak recruiting season at ABK? Are there deadlines or things we should look out for? And what should we do to stay fresh in people's minds, even when we're in that off season?
Gotcha. Yeah, definitely. So let me just put on my recruiter hat for a moment here as well too, and like go into my programmed response here as well too. So the Activision Blizzard internship program starts recruiting approximately around the end of August, running through the end of February. Sometimes those timelines may change a little bit, but that's usually when applications are open and when we start recruiting and hiring interns. The requirements of the internship program is that you must be available for 12 weeks of the summer. You must be in school and returning to school for at least one more semester post summer internship. And so for our summer 2025 program, applications will open up later this fall and run through early the following year. And we're looking for students that are graduating between December 2025 and spring 2026 for our general program. For folks graduating after those dates, we have a software program called Sparks that we'll be recruiting for. And for anyone that's graduating before that, unfortunately, you may not be eligible for the internship program, but we definitely encourage you to apply for any of our full-time roles upon graduation. The general advice that we give out is that prep your resume and your experiences and start applying about 2 months or so before you graduate for any of our associate level roles primarily.
Amazing. Thank you, Ed. So another question that we have here, and this is for everyone, is since our professions are so blurred along the lines of passion and professional, what do you do to avoid burnout and maintaining a good work-life balance? And let's start with Noura on this one.
Yeah, this was a really good one because burnout is something very easy to fall into without realizing it. Especially when you are in an industry where you're driven by your passion for what you're doing. I would say having good kind of support systems in the sense of like you set up a routine for yourself where you're able to get your work done, but you're also able to make sure that you pull back at the right time and work-life balance, managing your work-life balance. I think it can also help with the touching grass point that was made previously of making sure that you get a variety of stuff into your day outside of work, because if you work at a computer and then you go back and you're sitting on a computer for the next 6 hours before you or longer if you sleep late, that can kind of contribute to feeling tired and burnt out because it all feels the same. But yeah, kind of giving yourself that structure, giving yourself whatever support systems will help you keep a good work-life balance, whatever that might look like for you, because it also it's different for each person. So whatever works for somebody else might not exactly be the thing for you. So try different things and see what works. But don't let your passion pull you further than your limits, because that is how you make yourself hate your job over time. And if you love it, why would you want to do that to yourself?
Amazing. And as I realize time is sneaking up on us. So what I'm going to have us do is I'm going to have us go around and say one piece of advice that you would like to leave our wonderful audience with before we depart. And I'll start with Ed.
Your resume is so important. Please fix up your resume. If it's just like a checklist of things you've done, that's not enough, right? It's highly competitive, and the resume is going to be super important for you to kind of get your first look at. So definitely work on your resume, make sure it's relevant. If you only have one copy / one version of your resume, that's not great, right? Tailor your resume to the job you're applying for, showcase the skills and the relevant skills and the relevant projects that you have for that job you're looking for. So please, please, please work on your resume.
Megan?
I would say to keep trying. Like, doesn't matter if you get it the first time, like keep putting stuff in your portfolio, just keep trying. Um, Everything happens eventually and things will work out when it's time. And even if it doesn't look like you're worried in the moment or something like that, it'll eventually come, and just never stop trying, pretty much.
Noura?
Information is your best friend. A lot of anxiety about the application process and trying to get an internship and all that comes from not knowing what's going on. So talk to people, try to find resources, anything to help you be more informed. Won't guarantee you results, but it will help you be better prepared, and it will hopefully help, reduce some of the anxiety around all of this.
Thank you so much, everyone. This has been such an awesome session, and thank all of you for coming and participating today. I'm going to say just please stay in touch with our Press Play series that has been linked over in the sides, as well as any other Handshake events. And be sure to follow us on all of our ABK social media. On LinkedIn, you'll see a lot of different updates. So be sure to stay in the know, and I will hand it back to Britton.
Thank you so much to our entire panel. I feel like I learned, so I had my notebook and I was taking notes here. Thank you again for joining us, and thank you everybody who came and tuned in. We got so many amazing questions. We didn't get the chance to answer all of them, obviously, but you'll also see some ABK office hours that were linked in the chat a little bit earlier. So feel free to jump in and ask some questions to the early careers team during that session tomorrow. If you all have a moment, please take 30 seconds to fill out our feedback survey in the chat so that Handshake can continue bringing you awesome events like this one in the future. And be sure to follow us on Instagram at Join Handshake for more event announcements. We have more things coming up next month and beyond, so you can check them out at the link in the chat or on Instagram. And that's it for today. It really flew by. Thank you so much, and I hope that everybody has a great rest of your week. Thank you so much for being here. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.